And welcome to tonight's presentation. My name is Sabrina Cedeno, and I'm a program associate at Fractured Atlas. Um, Before we get started, I hope everyone can hear me. If my voice cuts out, can someone just put in the chat and let me know? In fact, can someone let me know right now in the chat that I am loud and clear? Can everyone hear me? Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I hope you are all having a fabulous Tuesday. We're about to dive into fiscal sponsorship here at Fractured Atlas, one of my favorite programs at Fractured Atlas. So I'm really excited to talk to you about it. So we really appreciate our new and prospective members taking out the time to learn about our programs and services. We found that members who proactively learn about fiscal sponsorships, procedures, and policies have, once they've learned that, they have a much easier time using the program and raising the money to meet their goals. So there will be an opportunity to ask me questions at the end of this presentation, but if something comes up, please feel free to put a question into the chat. And if it's relevant to what I'm talking about, I'll answer it in the moment, but if not, I'll save it for the end. Tonight's webinar is being recorded, so don't feel the need to take a lot of notes. I will send this recording to everyone who's on the call later on this week. Okay, so let's start with why you are all here. Likely you've got a great idea to create art, such as maybe you're a filmmaker working on a passion project, or a choreographer trying to start a new dance company. Perhaps you're a visual artist looking to create a new installation, or you're an educator who wants to start training the next generation of artists. Either you're trying to create an artistic product or provide an artistic service, but you're not sure how maybe you can pay for it. And so I'm sorry. And so arts projects are typically funded in 3 different ways. The first, maybe you can pay for your artistic expenses yourself. If you are able to create your art entirely out of pocket, then likely you're not on this call. But maybe you are, and you just want to learn fundraising. Who knows? The second would be you can get other people to pay for it, perhaps by selling your product or service to them, so earned revenue, or by having them invest in your product and offering them a share of the profit in exchange. Uh, if you're a Hollywood film director or a Broadway producer, then you would be familiar with this, but it's unlikely that many people who are just starting their arts practice are then able to make a profit off of earned revenue or have for-profit investors very early on. So we're going to talk about the rest of us. So the rest of us, we're able to seek charitable nonprofit sources of support by soliciting donations from individuals, sponsorships from businesses, or grants from foundations. This model differs from the for-profit scenario in that individuals, businesses, and foundations are supporting your work out of the kindness of their hearts because they genuinely believe in your work and your project or the impact that you're bringing to the community and your audiences. The large majority of these types of donations in the United States are made to nonprofit entities that have been granted 501c3 status. However, you can still ask for donations from individuals and grants and foundations without 501c3 status. And if you do come across that in our program, then, go for it. Oh no, my audio is cutting out. Okay, thank you for letting me know. If it happens again, message me. I might need to change my headset. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, so it's likely that your closest family members might be able to make a small contribution, or there's certainly some foundations that are awarded to individuals. So yeah, you don't always have to be a 501c3 to accept charitable donations. And again, if you are fiscally sponsored and someone is saying, I want to just give to you, I doesn't need to go to a 501c3, then right on. That's always beautiful. Okay. But if you've done any fundraising before, you likely know that being able to offer individuals tax deductibility in exchange for their contribution can be a major incentive in getting donors, those larger donors or those larger foundations. So we're going to talk about that. And while there are institutions that award grants and fellowships to individuals or arts collectives, you'll find that many more corporations and foundations only support organizations with 501c3 status. So many people do come to our fiscal sponsorship program because they're kind of tied between, we want to become a 501c3, we want to hit up those major foundations and those grants and these major donors, but becoming a 501c3 can be a very expensive and time-consuming ordeal. And we completely understand that. We have people come to our program until they feel ready to be a 501c3, and we even have some people stay within the program after they've gotten that status. So it's definitely up to you, but we do recognize that being your own 501c3 can be very labor intensive, and it's also may not be for everyone. So that's where fiscal sponsorship comes in. So let's say you're an individual photographer who's trying to fundraise to support your next exhibition, or you're not 100% sure that you've got a viable idea, like you're a new theater company that wants to see if there's a demand in your community for your projects before committing to forming a nonprofit, or your project isn't exclusively a charitable enterprise. Maybe you're a filmmaker who wants to shop around your project to commercial distributors, but also want to receive donations to start the project and to then also edit and finalize the project. We have many filmmakers that become fiscally sponsored so that they can fundraise for the beginning, during, and then after process of creating their film. And then once they've met their goal, then they, can end their fiscal sponsorship so that they may shop it around and sell it afterwards. So that's fine. So all those scenarios are to say that Fractured Atlas does have a solution for not feeling too confident in becoming that own 501c3, or maybe you don't want to be a 501c3. We do have a solution for you. If maybe you're the person that doesn't want to pay for your own art or can't sell your art for earned revenue, then fiscal sponsorship is definitely here to assist. So before I start talking to you about fiscal sponsorship, I'm going to let you know a little bit about myself, because I actually have a fiscally sponsored project as well. So my name is Sabrina, and I've been at Fractured Atlas for a little over 2 years now. I have a fiscally sponsored project called Project X. We are a Latinx artist collective in the Bronx, New York, mainly focusing on poetry. So we have monthly poetry events, and then we do about I want to say 6 community events throughout the year, which work with different community organizations to put poetry in with other art forms. So most recently, we did a poetry and design event with an organization in the Bronx, and it's all about just getting kids and families familiar with poetry. And anyway, so I'm fiscally sponsored, and I did not want to form a 501c3, and I was having a hard time, fundraising within my community, and I knew there was grants out there. I knew there was crowdfunding, and I wanted to better familiarize myself with that. And so I became fiscally sponsored, and we've been raising funds, and it's been great. And Fractured Atlas has been a great leverage for me. So Definitely, we have many different types of projects that are fiscally sponsored. Um, hmm. And then, so what we do have is we have a team of 15 artists and arts administration on the fiscal sponsorship team, and we serve over 66,000 members internationally, and we work with about over 4,000 fiscally sponsored projects. So that's who's fiscally sponsored, and since 2002, we've helped them raise over 128 million, 22 million just within the last year. So we are really trying to help our projects meet their goals and fundraise. So about Fractured Atlas, now that I've told you about me, about Fractured Atlas, we are a nonprofit arts and technology company working with artists to eliminate barriers. We create online solutions to help artists meet business needs so that they can spend more time focusing on their art. So, to that end, fiscal sponsorship eliminates an important hurdle, which is fundraising and forming your 501c3. With fiscal sponsorship, we extend some of the benefits of our 501c3 status so that you, so that you so that artists and arts organizations can solicit tax deductible donations from individuals, corporate sponsorships, and grants from foundations, which would typically be unavailable to those who do not have a 501c3 status. So, this is great if you are an individual artist trying to seek support for your arts practice, a new or small arts organization that wants training wheels, period, before deciding if you want to pursue your own nonprofit status, or a for profit arts enterprise that wants to seek both investors who plan to share in the profits of your work and nonprofit donors who wants to make a tax deductible donation. So those are the three categories that you might fall under. The mechanism of fiscal sponsorship is that a donor or institution makes their contribution directly to the 501c3, which is us. So in our case, a donor who wanted to support your work would make either a credit card donation on our website or write a check made payable to Fractured Atlas. So Fractured Atlas would be the ones receiving the donation. And since we are the ones receiving the donation, we would then be able to issue a tax receipt. So we would then issue the donor a tax receipt and hold the donation for your project in a restricted balance for your project to then release as expenses arise. So you can request funds from us whenever you need them to then disperse them to you in the form of a grant. So that's how it works, it's going to uh, pretty much, it would come to you as a grant. So donations would come to us, we process them, give a tax receipt, hold your funds in a fund balance, and then as an expense comes up, like, oh, we just got a new artist for our festival in May. And here's the artist contract, there to be getting paid this much, then we would release that much to your bank account that you would have on file. Now, I think our I'm reading this text that this person says, I may be biased, but I think our program is the best, which I'm not going to read that, but I do think our fiscal sponsorship program is the best in the arts nonprofit sector, because I mean, I could give a whole bunch of reasons, but I personally think we're a great fiscal sponsor because we have actual like customer service people that you can call and say like, oh, this isn't working out, or I'm like, I need assistance with this, or can we talk about this event that I'm planning? Like, I need some input. I think having, not everyone always has a team that can give you feedback or input or advice, and having that can be very valuable, especially when fundraising, because you're gonna run into a lot of no's, or like, you're applying to grants and you may not get it, or you didn't meet your goal that you had set out for maybe, and it's good to have a team that's positive and that believes in you and that really wants to see you win. So I'm not going to read what was listed here. I'm just going to tell you that's really why I think our fiscal sponsorship program is great, because I get so many people calling who just really want to talk about like their next fundraising event and like get feedback, or that will send me their grant application for a review and then be surprised like, oh wow, you gave me all this feedback. Like, yeah, you know, I really want to see you get this money. Okay, moving on. The first is that, so all right, so now we're going to talk about administration fees. No matter where you go, any fiscal sponsor is going to have an administration fee. Administration fees go from 7 to about 10% of each donation. Ours is 7%, and that will never go up. It would only go down. So most, and so our fee covers all costs associated with administrating your sponsored fund. So that 7% fee is going towards the staff, the website, any bank fees, credit card processing fees when your donors make a donation. So we just had a question about, do we help with artists about what grants might be good fits? Yes. So I believe we're going to touch on that about what's called the grants toolkit. So we do put together that for our fiscally sponsored projects to let you know, like, hey, we did a search. Here's the best grants that we think fit your project. And then the toolkit comes with a whole lot of helpful information. So I do believe we're going to get into that more fully in this presentation about the grants toolkit, but if not, I'm happy to talk further about it after the presentation during question and answer, because I actually do the grants toolkit, so I can tell you all about it. Okay, back to the administration fee. So ours is 7%. Again, it's going towards the staff, the website, all the credit card processing fee. It'll never go up. It'll only go down as you raise more money. So this is actually how it goes down. So the administration fee is taken out of each donation that is processed. So if you receive a donation of $100, 7% will come to Fractalis. The remaining will go directly into your fund balance. I will say that on the website, when someone makes a donation, either on your, because you will, everyone who's fiscally sponsored already has a donation landing page on our website where donors can make an online contribution with a credit card. So on that page, also, if you decide to launch a crowdfunding campaign with us, on the crowdfunding campaign, so on both, donors who are donating with a credit card will be given the option to cover that 10%. So to increase their, I'm sorry, not 10%, 7%. So to increase their donation by 7% to cover that fee. And 9 out of 10 times people click on that option because we're giving it to them right there. And we're kind of like, hey, you know, you should really cover this fee for the artist. And 9 out of 10 times they're clicking that button. They want to see you get the full donation and they're happy to increase it a little bit. So yes, it comes out of each donation. And our fee is tiered, as you can see. So the more money you raise, the lower the fee goes on, only on check donations though. So this only goes down on checks and grants. Credit cards, it'll still remain 7%. I believe that's because we still have like credit card processing fees and things like that. But again, credit card people are more likely to hit that cover the fee. So potential, oh, and I'm sorry, I had a question about, is there also on balance and interest? So there is no fees on your balance. We would not deduct fees from your balance, and sometimes, you know, you might get like say $1,000 one year, but you're not ready to release those fees until the next year. That's perfectly fine. We're not gonna the the funds will not build interest and they will not be feed. So your balance will be exactly the same from when it came into your fund balance to whenever you release it. And with your online portal, you'll have access to seeing this information at all times. So you'll always be able to see what your fund balance is, what your donation history is, also what your fund release history is. So you can see when you requested funds, what you requested the funds for, and that'll be really helpful for like end of the year reporting and just keeping track of your own project finances. Okay, potential savings. We found that our 7% administration fee actually represents a discount for new and small arts nonprofits. Unless you have dedicated accounting staff in place for automated systems to help you keep track of your income and expenditures, the cost of maintaining your 501c3 status with the IRS can eat up more than 7% of contributed income. So ultimately, being your own 501c3 is going to cost, fees, and you're going to need staff who's keeping track of these donations. So fiscal sponsorship is, again, a great alternative for those beginning steps until, maybe you reach a higher budget and you do want to be your own 501c3. So oversight. So if you are fiscally sponsored, Fractured Atlas would be the sponsoring organization, and we're going to need to have oversight. So to keep in mind when evaluating fiscal sponsors is that all of them are going to maintain some level of oversight with regards to how you solicit donations and how donated funds are used. I'm going to go back to that because what we really mean here is like we really want to be involved with your fundraising. So if you are even just sending a letter to friends and family with just some news on like your upcoming production or your upcoming exhibition, and you want to start asking for money, send that to us. Say, hey, we're talking about receiving donations. We have Fractured Atlas mentioned on the letter. We have a link to the page. Anywhere that you're talking about, your relationship with Fractured Atlas, we do recognize that not everyone will understand what fiscal sponsorship is. So send it to us and we're happy to look at that. We generally, for like just regular letters, we can review and turn that around to you within 1 to 2 business days. With grant applications, we do ask for 10 business days to review those. We do have a rush policy. If you do find out about a grant and it's crunch time and you send it to us, then we can do it as a rush, and there will be a rush fee for that. But we ask for 10 business days for grants. Everything else we can do in 1 to 2 business days. Same thing with crowdfunding campaigns. We do that 1 to 2 business days. If you are updating the information on your online profile or creating giving levels, or I just reviewed someone's fundraising brochure that they're mailing out, and I did that in 1 day and got back to them. So we're very quick with that. Grants, we do ask for a little bit of a longer time, but that's because we're doing our due diligence and like really thoroughly going through your application, as well as the funding requirements and their eligibility. So okay, moving on. So you'll also want to be clear with your sponsor regarding ownership of the work. Ownership of the work that you produce while sponsored. With Fractured Atlas, you maintain ownership over your work. If you decide to enter a for-profit agreement, like with outside investors or commercial distributions, we'll want to keep in the loop and review these agreements. So again, fiscal sponsorship can vary in different places. Again, with like the admin fee, you'll see different amounts in different fiscal sponsors, and the same thing with intellectual property. So if you're not fiscally sponsored with Fractured Atlas, but you're just interested in us, we do not own the rights to your work. We completely respect your ownership of that. And if you do decide to enter into agreements with for-profit, like for-profit agreements with investors or commercial distributors. Ugh, sorry about that. We just want to be kept in the loop because we want to make sure you're not, that it doesn't affect the actual charitable fundraising that you're doing. um, uh, Mary, I saw your question, and I'm gonna answer. You know, you can send me your grant application, but if you're not fiscally sponsored and I'm reviewing it, I may, that may be like my own services. So you may need to buy me some coffee or something, or send me a chocolate croissant or something, something. Um, okay, moving on to the next one. Ooh, that's a pretty mailbox. Okay, so when it comes to oversight for your fundraising activities, we want to review and sign off on your written donor solicitation materials. This would be your individual appeals, newsletters, e-blasts, website content, anything that mentions fractured atlas or promises tax deductibility. So you don't need to send us every single thing, but so for instance, like your website, if you have some language for a website, you can say, hey, I put this language on our website, can you take a look? And we can say, hey, that looks great. We'll give you some feedback on that. Um, a podcast? No, I mean, we'd love to hear your podcast episodes, so please send those episodes. But we actually have standard text available to all of our fiscally sponsored projects on their My Fiscal Sponsorship page. So if you are doing a podcast or an event, you'll be able to use that language when referencing Fractured Atlas or making donations. When it comes to if you're sending out newsletters, you can just send us one template and say, hey, this is the newsletter I'm going to be sending out to the different friends and families I have. Again, we're just looking to go over and make sure that you're accurately stating the relationship between Fractured Atlas and you. So we're not your umbrella organization. We're not your parent organization, we're your fiscal sponsor, and then what that means for your donors. So Christopher brought up a good question. I'm definitely going to get to that grant eligibility. It does seem like a number of you are interested in grants, which is great because that's mainly what I do. So, woohoo! But definitely, I'm making a mental note that once we get to the end of this presentation, to give you all the information you need about Fractured Atlas and grants. So, all right. So we covered oversight. So if you have something that's going out that's asking for donations and mentions tax deductibility or Fractured Atlas, send it to us. It's beneficial for us to keep track of how you're mentioning this program so that no one gets confused, and it's also beneficial for you because we do provide feedback. Okay, now this is fairly new, actually. No, I think it's actually been around for a year. But this is fundraising by Fractured Atlas. This is, a way that our fiscally sponsored projects can fundraise by crowdfunding. We created our own platform. We used to have partnerships with Indiegogo, but we saw that partnerships with other crowdfunding platforms would mean a higher fee on your donations, and we don't want that. We want you to get all the money that you deserve. And also by launching our own crowdfunding campaign, we're able to then allow you to access funds before the campaign is over, since the money is coming directly to us. With Indiegogo, we had to wait until your campaign was over and then Indiegogo would send us the money, and it would just take too long for you to get your money. So launching our own crowdfunding platform has been great. Please review it. It's Fundraising by fracturedatlas.org. So you can definitely take a look there. We offer a crowdfunding platform as part of the fiscal sponsorship. Staff will assist you in setting up your campaign and review it to ensure you have properly accounted for any goals any goods you're offering in exchange for your donations. There are no additional fees on these fundraisings. So now we've gotten into what it seems like everyone's favorite uh, topic, grants. So fiscal sponsorship can open the door to institutional funding, like from foundations or corporations, as with approvals of your individual solicitations and crowdfunding campaigns. We want to be involved when you apply for grants from these sources. So before you start looking at grants, however, you should be aware of our grant eligibility. We require that projects raise $1,000 of donations before they are eligible to apply for grants through us. If you can show you've raised $1,000 through contributed, not earned revenue before you've come to Fractured Atlas, then we're happy to waive this requirement. So we do have this requirement, and this requirement is put in place because of our relationship with funders across the US, and hearing their feedback on applications that's come to them, and having those discussions. We've found that many foundations and large institutions don't want to give seed money. They don't want to be the startup funding for organizations. They want to be able to see that organizations have, or artists have, some support already. At least they've built a community. And it's also going to be important within grant applications to not only include that on your budget, but in your narrative. You'll be able to really talk about, I've built this community, this following, this is, important, and this is the funds I've raised so far. You'll definitely have a stronger application if you can at least talk on having raised some funds before reaching that application. So that's why we have it in place. Now, however, not every grant is the same. There are some grants, like every state has their own arts council, and sometimes that arts council has little councils throughout the state. Those smaller councils, for instance, like there's New York State Council on the Art, but there's also Bronx Council and Brooklyn and Queens Council on the Arts. And the smaller county councils will have like a re-grant program. And those are geared towards offering seed money to people who are just starting up, and they need to raise money. So there are some grants. If you have a grant that you're just like, I really want to apply to this, I haven't raised $1,000, and we will look at it and see if this is something that we can waive the crowdfunding, the grant eligibility for. Things that can go towards waiving the grant eligibility: if you've done a crowdfunding campaign before, you didn't need to reach your goal. As long as you've raised at least $1,000, then we'll waive it. If you've gotten a grant before or a donation, and you've almost hit 1,000, send it to us. We really want to work with you. So oh, I got a question. Correct. So you don't need to have raised $1,000 of grant funds before you can start applying. You just need to raise $1,000 of donations. So it's mainly individual donations that we're looking for. If you have received a grant before of $1,000, then we'll still waive it. But we're really looking to see that you've built a community around your art that supports your art before you start soliciting institutional. Really, because studies have been shown that it's when you look at these arts organizations and artists, it's really individuals who are their support as opposed to institutionals and grants. institutions and grants are great, but it's not guaranteed you're going to get that funding. But if you've built like a real connection with your audience or your fans, then those are the people that are going to keep supporting you. So we want to make sure that you've built some type of support in your community or with your audience before you go to grants. And again, on your grant application, you'll be able to talk on that. You'll be able to talk about all that stuff. Um, all right, so I got a few questions on the crowdfunding that I'm sorry I didn't get to. So one question was, do you need to reach your fundraising goal in order to get the money? No, you do not need to reach your fundraising goal in order to get your money. I think that is the craziest thing ever, that you don't get your money if you don't reach your goal. You definitely still get all your money raised, so don't worry about that. Um, when are they able to send it to? I'll definitely give our email later. Okay, so I think I answered the questions. All right. Fund release process. Okay, so I just want to make sure grants, everyone got grants. You can definitely apply to grants through us. We want to be part of the process. So if you have a grant that you're interested in, let us know. Um, we've most likely already submitted to them, so we can let you know, okay, hey, we've had this much success rate with them, or like this is what we've heard they're looking for, or like this is what your application should make sure it should include. And a lot of times on grant applications, they're going to be asking information from us and documentation from us. So that's part of why we ask for 10 days to review your applications so that we can get all of Fractionalis's information together. We also give you feedback on everything from your narrative to your budget. You do need to raise at least $1,000 in donations before submitting grants through us. If you have a grant that you really want to apply to, let us know. We might be able to waive it for that opportunity. If not, and if you're really feeling stuck on, oh, I can't raise this $1,000, have a consultation with us. Let's talk about how we can really help you identify who your audience is and how you can reach that so that you can raise $1,000. Because again, building that community is going to be the foundation to then applying to grants. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I might have confused people with grants. So when I was talking before about donors giving funds to Fractured Atlas, and then Fractured Atlas giving the funds to you in the form of a fund release, which we're going to talk about next, that is seen as a grant, but no, you are not applying for that. You're just requesting it. It's a Model C fiscal sponsorship, which means donations come to us and then we grant the funds to you, but it's not an actual like application to us or anything like that. Your application to us was your fiscal sponsorship application, and then once you've been approved, then you can start fundraising and requesting the funds to be sent to your bank account. What you will need to send to us when you are requesting funds is, we're going to talk about that now, is a fund release request, which is when you log on to your My Fiscal Sponsorship page and you say like, I'm releasing, so say in your fund balance you have $5,000. You could say I'm releasing $2,500 to pay for a projector. So you will need to submit that to us. And then we do require documentation for larger fund release requests. So I would just have documentation of any type of expense. It'll also help you in the long run to keep track of that. And documentation can be like if you're paying for a flight out, maybe it's a screenshot of the cost of the flight, or if you're paying 10 artists for your upcoming season, it's a contract with the artist confirming that this is how much you're getting paid. um, Okay, so I'm gonna talk about uh, talk more about the fund release request. So I'm sorry. So now fund release request, you submit that to us. We send it to you at the end of each year. We have an annual report where you're just going to be confirming the amounts that you released funds for. So for instance, again, if you released, let's say, $2,500 within a year in your annual report, you'll just be confirming we, use this $2,500 for X, Y, and Z, as indicated on our fund releases to you. So taxes, because this is seen as a Model C fiscal sponsorship where we're granting you the funds, at the beginning of each year, we will send a 1099, which how much you released in that year. So it's not how much came into your fiscal sponsorship, but how much was released. So you do have to file taxes on that 1099. We do have some people that we can refer you to if you have questions on this. What we've heard has been helpful is that if you keep track of, if you keep all your receipts and you print out that fund release history that I told you about, bring that to your accountant and show that these funds were not coming to you as income, but these were coming to your project that you are fiscally sponsored for. And then we also have references that we can, referrals that we can then give you, so how you can better prepare for that. But you can bring documentation with you on your taxes with that 1099, again, to show these funds were not going to you as income, but they were coming to your project for project-related expenses. Now, for fund releases, you can certainly request funds to pay yourself. We want to make sure you are getting paid for your work. Just keep in mind that when you go to do your taxes, you will need to pay taxes on anything that is coming to you as income. So you should be able to offset all the other funds on your 1099 by showing your fund release for history and showing receipts that these funds went to different expenses. But if you do pay yourself, just be prepared that you might need to pay taxes on that. And again, just call us or email us if you're like, I need to talk to someone about my taxes. We do have a group of artists and tax preparers that we refer all of our fiscally sponsored projects to, and we've heard no complaints. Everyone says that they're really helpful and they've helped them, so cool. Hmm. Uh, all right, I'm gonna save the rest of the questions for when I'm done, but because I just want to get through these last few slides and then I'm gonna go through everyone's questions. All right, so contractual relationships. So we went over the taxes and your responsibility. So the contract between yourself and the fiscal sponsor, we do have a contract that you will sign if you are approved for fiscal sponsorship. And our contract pretty much ultimately says that, again, we're not owning your work. We have this 7% admin fee, just outlines many of the things I was talking about earlier. And then also we are non-exclusive, so you can have multiple fiscal sponsors, and that's also listed in our contract. You will, if you are scouting out different fiscal sponsors, you may want to ask a fiscal sponsor if they are non-exclusive as well, because not all of them are. So agreement and application for fiscal sponsorship can be found on our website. We do have On the help tab right there, you will be able to see fiscal sponsorship, and then you'll be able to see all of our policies, our agreement, everything there. No, there's no application fee. No application fee. If I said application fee, I'm sorry, I meant admin fee, but no application fee. All right, so let's talk about the steps now to getting fiscally sponsored. Yes, so 7% is the only fee that you are paying. Oh, well, you're not paying, but it's the only fee. It's the only fee. Now, something that fiscally sponsored projects do have to think about, or that's something that you would be paying, is membership, which I guess this should have been at the beginning. But anyway, membership is anyone who is fiscally sponsored would have to be a member. And to be a member, I'm sorry, to be fiscally sponsored, you do have to be at one of the dues paying levels of membership. So that's the only fee that you would be paying. The 7% fee comes out of the donations, but there's no other fees other than those two. So if you're at the professional level membership, that's $10 a month. You can use your fiscal sponsorship fund balance to pay for your membership if you choose to. So you can do that. These are just the 3 levels of membership. The community level membership is free. You can do pretty much everything except fiscal sponsorship. You can apply for insurance. You could access Artfully, can access Space Finder. Professional and organizational, those are the 2 that allow you to purchase insurance after you've applied for your policies. If you want to bind it, you would need to be an active member at the dues paying level, or if you want to apply for sponsorship. So those services are only available to our dues paying members. Now, if you say you're at the professional level and you have an active fiscal sponsorship, but you go down to the free community level, your fiscal sponsorship will be paused, but nothing will be lost. So if you do decide to come back to the professional level membership, all of your information will still be there. Your funds will still be in your fund balance. You'll still be able to access donor and donation history as well as fund release history. So it will not be lost. And then, so the application. So now you're a member of a Fractured Atlas. You're at that $10 a month professional, or if you're at the organizational, that's $20. I didn't specify the difference. The difference between the 2 is the number of users on the account. So on the organizational level, it's $20 a month because you can have up to 3 users. So if you are an arts group that has multiple people helping you fundraise, or if you're going to have someone who's maybe the grant writer, but then you have someone who's handling the individual donations, then it might be best to have be at the $20 professional level and list both of them so that they both have their own unique login and both would be able to call in and talk to us, because only the user on the account we're allowed to really talk about the fiscal sponsorship program with. I mean, we could always give general information, but if you wanted to have like a one-on-one conversation about your project and what you're doing and your donors, then you do need to be listed on the account. That's just for privacy, and protecting people. So, okay, so now you're a member, now your application. We do have 2 important parts of the application. So you're going to see it's a very simple application. You can start it, save it, come back to it. But there's 2 things that we're really looking for. We're looking for the artistic component of your work. So if you are a sports group, that you need to really show your artistic component there. And we're looking for the public benefit. So we want to make sure that whatever you're doing has some type of artistic component and that you're doing something for the public. It doesn't always have to be Like the public benefit doesn't always have to be that you're necessarily trying to save the world of crayon loss, but maybe you're just doing your work for the public, and that's enough of a benefit just that people are seeing your awesome work. Maybe that's it. You want to definitely word it nicer on the application, but don't get too stressed out about that, because again, we just want to make sure that you're not doing your art within the confines of your own studio and then that's it. Like you're raising charitable funds to just buy paint for your own studio that never then sees the day of light. So we want to make sure that you are raising funds for this work to be out in the public, and for that your donors to then be able to also be part of it and benefit from it. All right. So the application will require a budget. It's going to be very basic on your fiscal sponsorship application. We're not judging you at all on the budget, so it could really be all zeros. If you're coming to the program not have raising any money so far, that's perfectly fine. We're really just using this budget to get a sense of what your goals are within the program, and where you currently are and how can we help you. We're also going to be asking if there's any outside investors already. So if you do, definitely indicate that on your application, because we'll want to ask you a few other questions. And if you don't have any investors now, that's fine. Indicate no. And then when you get some inquiries for investments, then let us know and we can move forward. All right, so once you submit your application, the board reviews it. Something that I did not mention is that on the application, we do ask for a legal entity. So that needs to be someone with a US tax ID. And that is because, again, we issue 1099s at the beginning of each year. So whoever the legal entity is on file for the fiscal sponsorship, that's who will be receiving the 1099. Now you can change that legal entity at any time. So if you do decide to like incorporate, or if someone else in the group wants to take over, that's perfectly fine. You can just let us know and we'll draft up an amendment to that and then have you and the previous legal entity sign it. So the board review, once you submit your fiscal sponsorship application, the board reviews it, and it takes about 1 to 2 weeks to review. Once they review, we will send you a notification. We don't just straight out deny people. We will try to see if there's something, we can get further clarification, or if there's something that you can go in and redo. Like if we maybe got the wrong idea of your project and we were like, oh, we didn't see the artistic component, and we'll message you that. And then if you're like, oh no, there is an artistic component, I just didn't specify it, then we'll have you resubmit. So someone said, is a social security okay? Yeah, so social security can be used if your entity doesn't have its own federal tax ID, then you can definitely, if you are going to be the legal entity receiving the 1099, then it should be you and your social. Okay, so before we jump into questions, just gonna go over the other programs outside of Fractalis, mainly because if you're calling, they'll probably be useful. I mean, I know they're gonna be useful to you, especially if you're fundraising. Artfully is incredible. It's an online ticketing and donations and contact software. It's really a custom relations management tool, and it pairs with your fiscal sponsorship so that it keeps track of everyone who's donated, everyone who's attended your events, anyone who's been a fan. It also allows you to sell tickets, and when you're selling tickets, people can make donations on top of their tickets. You can create lists that can then be exported into like MailChimp. So I think it's a great way to really keep track of your fans. And yeah, that's Artfully. Artfully works with fiscally sponsored projects. So it's a great way to start understanding your audience and managing your segments. So then we also have Space Finder. Space Finder is the process of finding space, but also listing space. So we are in many different cities across the US and in Canada, and you can, for free, search for space, list your space, and interact with different venues. And then lastly, we have business insurance. So you can apply for insurance to cover your artwork, your employees, your business. And again, applying for insurance is completely free at the free community level membership. So you can submit an application for insurance, get the quote, decide if you want to bind it. If you do want to bind it, then you would have to be at one of the dues paying levels of membership, because part of your membership would then include all the tools and services on your policy. So yeah, we help you manage risk. This is just some more information on our insurance. So we've worked with some of the world's leading insurance companies to design a number of these programs that are specifically tailored to meet artists' needs. We've made the process of applying and securing insurance pretty easily. It's all online. Artfully is free. Yes, you can use Artfully for free. And yeah, so you can start using it now. You don't need to be fiscally sponsored. We have many fiscally sponsored projects that are fundraising through us, use Artfully, and then when they do become their own 501c3, still use Artfully, because it's really amazing that you can keep track of all your fans and your audience in that way. So it's helpful. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water and then I'm ready for questions. I know some people had questions that I need to get to, but this is definitely, I want to thank you all for listening to me talk very fast this last hour. And I'm happy to answer questions, get more in depth. I know some people had some grants questions. I saw a tax question in there. So someone had asked about the email uh, to send it. So if you have met the grant eligibility requirement and you've raised $1,000, again, that $1,000 can be of individual donations. It could be of a previous grant that you've raised. It could be a crowdfunding campaign. Any documentation that you've raised $1,000 for this project, you can send that to support@fracturedatlas.org. In that same email, you could also say, hey, this is the grant that I'm looking for. Looking to applying to, and then we can get started on looking into them and making sure that you're eligible, making sure that we're eligible, and they accept fiscally sponsored projects. And then from there, we'll want to start, looking to see if they have a application deadline. If they do, whoever's working with you would say, all right, I need all your documents by this date, and start working with that. Something I did not, I mentioned briefly, but I didn't get into it. So we do ask for 10 full business days for grant reviews. If a grant is submitted to us 5 business days or less, that's like the crunch period, we do have a $75 rush review fee. So that $75 could be paid either through your fund balance or you paying it, but that is there. So wanted to make sure I let you know. All right. So, identifying grants. So someone had asked about that earlier, and I said I would talk about that. So grant toolkits, you can request a grant toolkit. A grant toolkit, which means that you're saying, you know, I'm interested in applying to grants, but I'm not certain what grants are available to me and where I can go for these grants. So you can hit, you know, email us, call us, and say I would like a grants toolkit. What we'll do is we'll put together an entire document that outlines the process of applying for a grant. So it'll break down everything from, you know, here's your initial letter of inquiry, here's, you know, narrative, this is what you should be thinking about, budget, here's what you should be thinking about. And then at the very end of this document, we'll have a list of all the funders that we've done a search for, both regional and national, both in your art discipline and all art disciplines. We'll put together that list, and then we'll say, all right, here are some funders that we think you should start creating applications for. Um, a lot of applications are, it's going to be you're starting the application and then you send it to us for review. There will be some rare instances like New York State Council on the Arts where Fractured Atlas needs to be the applicant on record, and we're the ones submitting the grant. So in those cases, we will download the application questions, send it to you, you'll send it back to us, we'll input it and submit on your behalf. But a lot of times it will be you submitting, it will be you, you know, working on the application, sending it to us. We may need to submit some applications from Fractured Atlas, so we'll send it to you to include, and then you'll send it out. Um, I got, so you do have to file taxes. We covered that. Can you request funds to be released to pay taxes? So that's not something, I don't think that's option that we have on the fund release request. You can release funds to yourself to pay yourself, and if this is a cost that you want to cover. Hmm. Justin, that's a good question. I need to get back to you on that question because I'm not 100% sure if that's something that you can request through the request form. So I'll definitely get back to you. But I do see that there are some, like, what are restrictions for funds to be released? That's a great question. We do have restrictions on regranting funds. So that's really what you can't do. You can't release funds, like say you release $500 and you write scholarship. And then we, you know, ask you about it and you say, oh, well, you know, my friend wants to go take an art class and I'm giving her this $500. So you wouldn't be able to do that with funds, giving funds to another person to then do what they like. We have a lot of people actually call and say, you know, I want to donate part of my donations to this nonprofit. And you wouldn't be able to do that because that's re-granting funds that you raise specifically for your project. So the funds you raise can only go towards your project and your project's expenses. Um, so that's really the main description. I'm sorry, the main restriction. I'm going to show you all um, where you can get a whole bunch more information because I was doing this before. So remember the help, and then we have knowledge base, and then we have fiscal sponsorship. So right here, you'll be able, this is, I know it looks like a lot, but it's information that you can put into here and find information really fast. But it talks here about the types of donations you can get, crowdfunding, the grants, like the grant eligibility requirement right here, and so releasing funds. And then you can talk about it'll explain how long does it take for funds to arrive, how do I release funds, and talks about the annual report. So that there's that. Let's see what else I got. Is a 7% tax deductible? I'm not sure I understand the question. So you mean the 7% that's coming to Fractured Atlas, if that's tax deductible to, I think Renee asked that question, so I don't know if they're still here. Okay. So you're talking about the 7% that comes to Fractured Atlas, if you could claim that or you can write that off, that would, yes. So I'm still not under, I'm not sure I understand the question. Oh, okay. Yes. Now I understand the question. So no, the 7% is not included in the 1099. The 1099 only lists the amount you released. So that is after the 7%. Okay. Sorry it took me a while. I was just like, what is she asking? uh, so yeah, great question, Jackie. The donor will get a tax receipt for the full amount of their donation, given that they haven't received anything in exchange for their donation. So if you have a giving level set up that says, give $2,500 and you will receive 2 tickets to my next show, then that donor's tax receipt will be the amount after the 2 tickets. So if the 2 tickets are $50 and they gave $250, their tax receipt will indicate $200 because those 2 tickets are not tax deductible. That's something that they received in exchange for their donation. So it would be the difference between the two. And to find out more information on what partially deductible donations are, such as that and how it works, you can click right here underneath donations and it'll explain different partial deductibilities and what that means for your donor. So, okay, does anyone have any other questions? Oh, did I skip a question? Make sure I didn't. Oh, thank you. Yes, the email is support. I'm sorry. Let me go back to that email. That Here we go. This is our email and our number. Space Finder is in California. Let me go back to show you. Right here, we're in Los Angeles, the Bay Area. Ooh, what happened to my computer? How long have you? I've been at Fractured Atlas for over 2 years. December made 2 years. But I knew a lot about Fractured Atlas before I came here because I used to run a grants program. So I had a lot of fiscally sponsored projects coming to me, and that's how I found out. How long has Fractured Atlas been in business? I believe since 1991. Wow, this is embarrassing that I do not know that off the top of my head, but yes, I am going to our About Us page. I believe it was 1991. Is that one? History. Here we go. We're going to go to history. 1998. I'm making it older than what it is. 1998 is when it was created. I don't feel sorry. I should know that off the top of my head. But okay. Any other questions? comments. You guys have all been so great. It's been like best webinar I've done so far. Well, it's only been my second, but still great. Let's go back. All right, well, if anyone doesn't have any other questions, thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, what 3 categories for three? What generates the etiquette for building paying yourself a statement into a grant application you mentioned earlier? Oh, the 3. Hold on, let me go back to that. Let me see if this is the. Was this the slide you were talking about when we said that there's 3 different types of fundraising? You can pay yourself, you can ask, you can get investors or sell a product and get earned revenue, or you can fundraise. Those were the 3 types of funding. Is that what you're referring to? 3 categories of projects. Because in the project I was just referencing like different types of projects. We have no like discipline limit. Like you can only apply for, in these 3 projects or these 3 disciplines. Like we have so many different forms and artists that are fiscally sponsored. Everything from filmmakers to uh, in like solar installation art, to photographers, to choreographers, to like groups like my group, which we're a poetry group and we just do poetry events and then work with the community for like multimedia art events. So it you really don't have to stick to any certain type of art form or have any certain type of project. We're really open to a number of different projects, and as long as there's that artistic component and that public benefit, then we really want to try to get you fiscally sponsored. We don't want to turn you away. I hope I answered that question. And then Eloise had a question: what is the etiquette for building paying yourself a statement into the grant application? So the grant, most grant applications are going to have your salaried position and then your contracts position, contractors as well, or and artist fees. Those should all be, I mean, if there's I don't know if the grant that you're applying for has a template, but if you're creating your own budget, you'll definitely want to outline like who are the salaried positions that are being paid for this project, who are the contractors, who are the artists, and what their artist fees are. And I most definitely think you should include yourself. If you're working on this project, you should definitely include yourself. And maybe you're part of that artist fee, maybe you're an independent contractor, maybe you're part of the salaried position. If you are a salaried position, I find it's helpful to then outline give the breakdown of this is how much you're requesting, because this is how, like, this is a portion of your salary. So say you're requesting $600 because you're going to be, this grant is going towards 2 months of your regular salary position. So yeah, you can definitely include yourself on that budget. And if you are fiscally sponsored, we do have templates, so many templates for you to use, like a budget template, individual appeal template, grant application templates. So we do give you all of this, that when you are working on an application or working on your next outreach, you already have templates that you can refer to and build on. So. And then we also have more webinars exactly on these things. I'm going to switch screens back to this page, because if you go to the knowledge base and fiscal sponsorship, you'll also see fiscal sponsorship webinars down here. Um, we also have our YouTube page that you can get a whole bunch of informative webinars on there. Everything from how to build your budget to how to engage new donors. And yeah. All right, y'all. Any last questions for little old me? No problem. Thank you all for sticking with me on this Tuesday night. I hope you all have a great rest of the week. If you're in New York, enjoy the snow tomorrow. Definitely please call, email us, let us know if you have any questions. If you're like, I'm not still certain on if this is the program for me, call me. I can be very persuasive on the phone. So let me know. Let me know your concerns or your hesitations. You have our email. You have our phone number. Again, my name is Sabrina. I will be emailing everyone this presentation either later this week or early next week. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. Take care.